Hello everyone, welcome to our live lesson for today. I can see a few of you are joining here. Come in and say hi to everybody who's here in the chat box. It's great to have you with us today. So come into the chat box, say hi, and tell us, where are you joining from today? I'm here in the UK where it's fairly grey weather today, but not raining. So where in the world are you today? Okay, hi to everybody who's joining. We've got quite an interesting variety today. We've got lots of you here in the UK. Hopefully you've got a bit more sunshine than I have, and then quite a few of you from all around the world today, which is great. So welcome to our live lesson for today. So my name is Bethan and I am the Academic Director here at Specialist Language Courses. And today we are going to do an introduction to Listening Bee, and we're going to go over some tips and strategies to help you in your preparation. So before starting, just a few tips for our session. Firstly, the session is being recorded, but feel free to take notes or screenshots, but know that we will be sharing this to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and you can find lots of other free videos on OET tips with plenty of information there to help you in your preparation. Second, I am a little bit about how we're going to be using Zoom today. So we're going to use the chat to complete tasks during the class. So I might ask you to write some answers in there. And we are going to use polls. So when we have a poll, the poll will be launched onto your screen. In order to answer the poll, choose the answer that you want to choose and then click submit. And then we also have the question and answer function. So we will have time for questions at the end. If you have a question about our session today, please pop it into the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to answer these at the end today. And third, don't forget to register for our next free live lesson, which is coming up next week and will be on OET Reading C, an introduction and tips and strategies. Also, just to let you know that we are now offering one free live lesson a week. But if you want more for your OET preparation, you can join us in our 4 live lessons a week through our Reach OETB courses. Simply go to specialistlanguagecourses.com, go to the OET preparation menu, select Reach OETB Medicine or Nursing, add the course to your basket, and you are set for success in your OET exam. So today in our lesson, we are going to be covering an introduction to Listening Bee, including the format and the structure of the exam, as well as the challenges that you might face when you're preparing for Listening Bee. We are going to look at some exam strategies that you can practice and use when you're preparing for Listening Bee. And we are also going to go over ideas for self-study, things that you can do to help improve your skills for Listening Bee. Now, let's start with a poll and find out how much you know already. So what do you already know about Listening Bee? We have 3 questions on the screen. Each question has 3 possible answers, and 1 is correct. So I'm going to launch the poll, which should appear on your screen. I'd like you to have a little read of those questions and choose the best option A, B, or C for each one. All right, great. I can see some of you are answering that. So in the poll, choose your answers for questions 1, 2, and 3, and then click submit. Okay, great. That's great. So keep voting on that poll. I'll keep it open for a few moments more. All right, so let's share those results and have a look. So I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, and let's look at those results. So everyone is fairly unanimous for question 1. We've got some, and then we've got some different answers, fairly even answers for 2 and another answer for 3. So let's take a look at the answers to these questions. So for question number 1, in listening B, you hear 6 different audios. This is the correct answer. The audios are not connected in by topic, so they're on different topics, and you do not have one long audio. So you have 6 separate audios. Question number 2, the audios in listening B can be a colleague-to-colleague interaction. So in listening B, you may have a dialogue, or you may have a monologue. So it's not always a dialogue. And in C, always an interaction between a patient and professional. This is listening A. So listening A is always this interaction, whereas listening B can be a colleague-to-colleague interaction. Now, in question 3, this is interesting. In question 3, when it is a dialogue and there are 2 speakers, then one speaker is female and one speaker is male. So this is to enable you to differentiate between the 2 people that you're listening to. So you should always have one female and one male speaker when there is a dialogue between 2 people. So let's take a quick look at the format of the listening test. So we have listening A, which is 15 minutes and 2 patient-led dialogues. Then listening B, which is the one we're talking about today, you have 6 dialogues or monologues, so it can be a mixture of both, and you have 3 option multiple choice questions to answer. And all of this takes about 10 minutes. Then listening C, 2 longer presentations with 3 option multiple choice, and that again is a bit longer at 15 minutes. So what can you expect in listening part B? In listening B, as we've mentioned, you have 6 different extracts. Each extract is about 1 minute each. There are 6 multiple choice questions with 3 options. So there is 1 question per extract with 3 option questions. And each extract will be a different topic and setting. Or they will all be healthcare settings, but they will all be different ones. Part B will always begin with the same set of instructions. So this is what you will see on your listening paper, and you can see you'll hear 6 different extracts, and they're people talking in different healthcare settings. So you may have 6 different settings, and for each of the questions you need to choose A, B, or C. Before each question and options, the context of the audio will be clearly stated, and this is really important to help you answer the questions. So for example, here, the context, you will hear a nurse explaining wound care to a patient, and then we have the question, what does she explain to the patient? So this is the question we need to answer. So listening B tests a particular set of your listening skills. So each of the different listening sections in OET test slightly different listening skills. So in listening B, you may have questions that test your ability to listen for gist, so the main idea. For example, what are the doctors discussing? You want the main idea of their interaction. You may get a detailed question. For example, what symptom has the patient recently developed? So here you may listen to somebody describing a collection of symptoms, but you're listening specifically for the one that the patient has developed most recently or a short time ago. Or you may have a course of action question. So these types of questions are, you need to listen for what needs to happen next. What is the course of action? For example, what will the nurse do today? Looking at an example question, this is what your question will look like. So you will have a question and 3 possible answers. You have time to read each question before you listen. So you've got time to read through and apply your strategies. On the paper-based test, you mark your answer by coloring in the circle with a pencil. Now, in the paper-based test, if you want to make notes or comments on the answers as you're listening, you must make sure to do this perhaps to the right side or above. Don't make notes near the circle, as if you make notes here, it may be difficult to know which is your final answer. And this is read by a computer. So if it's not clear, then you may not get the point for that question. So what type of audios can you hear in Part B? So we've seen that the audios will be in a different healthcare settings. It may be a monologue or an interaction. You have a variety of different settings. They'll be on a different topic and setting, and you will only hear the recording once. So it's important to have a clear set of strategies to follow. So let's look at some examples of what healthcare settings you might encounter and the content of those extracts. So you may hear a healthcare worker talking to a colleague or patient or carer. Now notice it's not the same as listening A, so the patient won't be doing the majority of the talking. It will be the healthcare worker who will be talking the most in listening B. Could be a manager talking to staff, could be a handover briefing, and some content maybe giving information to other people, giving feedback to colleagues, addressing a patient's concerns, but again, you'll hear more of the healthcare worker talking, or deciding on a course of action, what needs to happen next. It's important that you are aware of vocabulary for any of the 12 professions. So the healthcare setting, if you're a nurse or a doctor, it could be in a hospital and it could be a nurse or a doctor speaking, or it could be a dentist, a physiotherapist, or a podiatrist. So it's really important to make sure you expand your vocabulary and your study to include words related to these professions. What is difficult about listening B? The majority of the students we speak to find various difficulties. You don't have too much time to read the questions and options, so you need to practice using your time efficiently. Distractors, answers that could be right, but turn out not to be right. Paraphrasing, the audio, the words that you see in the questions and what you hear in the audio may not be the same. The speaker's accent, the fact that you only listen once can be stressful, the speed of the speaker, and any unknown vocabulary. So in your preparation for listening B, you need to take into all this all into consideration, and in your training, make sure that you address each of these so that on exam day, you are confident in answering questions for listening B. As we've seen, the language used in listening B is usually quite formal and professional, but the language you hear might be more informal. For example, on the question paper, you may have the word observe. In the audio, you have keep an eye on. You may have assess pulmonary function, but on the audio, you have show how lungs are working. So it's really important in your preparation that you keep a note of these formal phrases and things that they're less formal equivalent. So what are the strategies for listening B? First, you must read the context, which is given to you, then understand the question, read the options and notice the differences, and make sure you listen to all of the audio before marking your answer. So again, remember to put notes or perhaps crosses or ticks on the right-hand side. So we are going to do a practice together. So we have a practice question on the screen. So let's follow our strategy steps. First of all, we need to understand the question and read the context. So here we can see it's a nurse briefing her colleague about a patient. Notice that she's briefing her colleague. So we can assume that the nurse is female and perhaps the colleague is male. We need to understand the question. What does she warn her colleague about? So here our keyword is warning. So something you need to be careful of or perhaps a possible danger. And we need to really understand this question in order to find the right answer. So it's likely that you'll hear information about all three of the options, but only one of them is a warning. So then we underline our keywords and then we listen to all of the audio before choosing the option. So let's look at our keywords. So again, in 25, the question, we've got what does she warn her colleague about? Keywords here, we've got allergic to some types of antibiotics. Is this what the warning is about? B, we've got care must be taken to prevent the patient from falling, so to stop the patient from falling. Perhaps here we have got information about a possible issue, and this is something that needs to be averted or prevented. And then in C, we've got oxygen may be needed if the patient becomes breathless. Notice that this is a course of action that needs to be taken if the patient becomes breathless. Is this what she is warning her colleague about? All right, so we're going to listen to the audio, and I'd like you to listen and make a note in your notebook. There's no need to write in the chat this time. Make a note in your notebook. What do you think is the right answer? A, B, or C?
Mrs. Green was admitted last night for pneumonia. She came in yesterday with a cough, fever, dizziness and chest discomfort. She's a healthy 60-year-old with a history of right knee replacement 5 years ago. She's on a regular diet and has no allergies. She's at high risk for falls due to her dizziness. We changed her IV antibiotics to oral, which she's tolerating well. Her assessment is within normal limits, except for some mild shortness of breath and wheezing. Her vital signs are stable, oxygen saturation is 98% on 1 litre, and she's been comfortable during my shift. Around 5:30, I gave her 2 paracetamol for minor pain, with good results. She has an 18 gauge in her left arm. She's got normal saline at 15 mils per hour.
Okay.
All right, so let's take a look at those answers together. So we can see that in this case, B is the correct answer. So if we look at the transcript, care must be taken to prevent the patient from falling. She is at high risk for falls due to her dizziness. So here we've got high risk and falls. Let's look at why the other ones are not correct. So A, it clearly states that the patient has no allergies. Antibiotics is mentioned, but not in the case of allergies. And then option C, there is information about shortness of breath and oxygen saturation, but this is not a course of action. It's not something that her colleague, that she's warning her colleague about. So when you're checking your answers, make sure that you use the transcript and you check why the other answers are incorrect. Now, let's do another one. Now it's your turn. So remember, look at the context. We're listening to a care home manager talking, a care home manager for the elderly talking to the nursing staff. So we can assume that this will be relating to nursing care. the statement in 26, he says that errors in dispensing medication usually result from. So this is important here. Usually result from, we're looking for what causes, what are the usual causes in errors in dispensing medication. And then we look at the options. Is it interruptions when calculating dosages? Is it because people do not check the patient's allergies? Or is it to do with the time of day? Is the error in dispensing medication because drugs are administered later in the day, so the afternoon or the evening? Now, this time I would like you to write your answers in the chat. So remember, listen to all of the audio first, and then in the chat, I'd like you to write 26, and then your answer A, B, or C.
Now, a quick word about the administration of medication. It's great to see how carefully you're all following the new guidelines, and thanks to this, error rates, which were always below average anyhow here, have dropped by 40%. The surveys we've done also throw up some interesting findings, like mistakes being more common in the morning than afternoons or evenings. We're not sure why, but there's a clear pattern. Also, we know that being disturbed for any reason while working out and preparing doses is a common reason for mistakes. So please, try and avoid distracting your colleagues while they're doing this. Finally, we must be on the lookout for drug interactions, side effects, and patient sensitivities. Fortunately, we haven't had too many problems of this nature, but the care needs of the vast majority of our residents are often quite complex.
All right, now pop your answer into the chat box. I noticed a few of you were putting your answers in before the end of the audio. Remember to listen to all of the audio before you make your final decision. All right, so the majority of you have put A, so let's take a look. The correct answer here is A, so let's look at why. So here, interruptions while calculating dosage. Here we've got interruptions as synonym, we've got being disturbed while working out and preparing doses. This is calculating dosages is a common reason for mistakes. So we have usually result from and a common reason, which are also synonyms. So then we check why B and C are not correct. So B, we have information on side effects and patient sensitivities, but this isn't given as a cause of the errors. And for C, we have the opposite information. So administering mistakes are more common in the morning than the afternoon or the evening. All right, we have one more practice question. So this is more for you to do. So notice the context, morning briefing in a hospital ward. Question, what is the plan for the patient today? If you have a time indicator, be listening very carefully for what is today and what may be tomorrow or next week. Then we have our options. A, her emotional state will be observed. B, she'll be transferred to a specialized unit. Or C, a social worker will come to see. Now, remember, everything is about today. So let's listen, and then at the end, put your answer 27, A, B, or C.
Right, so overnight admissions to the ward. Greg, could you start us off?
Sure. We have Sue Deans in bed 5. She's a 54-year-old female who was brought into the emergency department by police overnight. She has a history of poorly controlled paranoid schizophrenia. She presents with chronic persecutory and paranoid delusions and also significant thought disorder. She's to remain in high dependency unit care until the stabilisation of her symptoms. We'll be observing her every 15 minutes and monitoring the level of her distress, psychosis, and any response to interventions offered.
Okay. I'll review the clinical and detention status this afternoon. Now, what's the plan for discharge?
Social work interventions required for placement and community support options, and that's been booked for tomorrow. Also, an application for the appointment of legal guardian may be required.
Right. We will consider that at tomorrow's ward round.
Okay, well done, everyone. I saw you weren't putting your answer in until the end, so let's see your answer for 27. Okay, great. So the majority of you here choosing A. So let's take a look at this. So A is the correct answer here. So we're listening to today, and we'll be observing her every 15 minutes and monitoring the level of her distress. So her emotional state will be carefully observed. Then we look at why B is not correct. A key verb here, she is to remain in the high dependency unit care. She's not going to be transferred. And then the information about the social worker is booked for tomorrow, not today. So make sure that you listen carefully to the end before making your final choice on exam day. So how can you prepare for listening B? So make sure you're aware of the strategy. So look at the context, read the question carefully, paraphrase it in your mind or make notes on your question paper if necessary. Read the options carefully and notice the differences between them. Listen for the correct option and why the other options are not correct. And again, listen to the end before you make your final choice. Remember that the exact words may not be mentioned in the audio, and be careful of the distractors. So this is where reading the question is really, really important so that you know that you're answering the right question. So some study tips: practice listening for gist. So if you're in an English speaking environment, practice listening for the main idea of workplace conversations. You can watch healthcare training videos online. And really important, create a list of verbs that are commonly used in the workplace, which are perhaps quite formal, and then learn their meaning and any less formal equivalent words. It's vital that you improve your general listening skills. And to do this, you can listen regularly. So the closer you get to the exam and in your preparation time, make sure you listen every day. Medical podcasts, TED Med Talks or TED Talks. Attend any online medical conferences or webinars in English that you have access to, as this will help to improve your general listening skills and familiarity with the kind of audios and extracts that you will hear in Listening B. Make sure that when you are listening to videos, you're not just listening without an activity in mind. Listen for main ideas, gist. Listen again and note down any new vocabulary. We have an example of a resource here. Read about conditions and treatments. For example, we heard about pneumonia today, so you can listen to, you can make notes on vocabulary relating to pneumonia. For those of you who are using Reach OETB, you will find a variety of sections in Reach OETB on listening, specifically Part B. You will have language used in the workplace that you can study to help you understand Listening B, and you will have practice activities as well to help you prepare for your exam. So our top tips for Listening B: use the context for reference so you know the situation and the setting, underline keywords, and listen to the whole audio before you choose your answer. All right, so we have a few minutes for questions and answers. So if anybody has got any questions about Listening B, please pop them into the question and answer section, and we will do our best to answer them. Okay, so we have a question that has come in. How do we read and listen at the same time? Practice. So it's really important to be able to read and listen at the same time. So remember that in Listening B, you have time to read the question before you listen. So before each extract, make sure that you read the question and you apply those apply those strategies that we've talked about, and then practice applying these strategies in your OET training. It is also a good idea to practice reading and listening at the same time, because it's quite an important skill. So to practice that particular skill, you can watch training videos and read along the transcript, and reading and listening at the same time is a good activity. Okay. So we have a question about listening C. So in listening C, we will be running a session on listening C very soon. So please come along to that one. Does underlining the question, underlining the options in the question interrupt the machine scoring? No, it does not. So the machine scoring looks at how you've colored in the circle or the box where you need to write your answer. So if you're underlining the options, make sure you keep those underlines away from the circle that you need to color in, and this will not interrupt it. What you do need to be careful of is, like I've said, changing your mind. So if you decide on one answer and you color in the circle, but then you change your mind, you erase it and color in another one, if that's not clear, this may interrupt the machine scoring. So as I say, make sure you make any notes or underlining in the options or to the right-hand side. Okay, great. So thank you for your questions, everyone. And thank you for coming today. It's been really great having you here. Don't forget to register for our next live lesson, which is next week, and it will be on reading. Our next free live lesson will be on reading C. The link is in the chat, so please use that link to sign up. We are going to be, as we've mentioned, we're going to give one live lesson a week, and you can find more information on our social media platforms. So stay tuned to those social media platforms, and we'll be announcing them there. If you are preparing for your OET and you haven't yet signed up for one of our courses, we have a great range of courses for you. So we have our Reach OETB course for nursing and medicine, and here you can find exam practice as well as activities to improve your vocabulary and language. We also have the OET Writing Correction Service. So if you particularly want help with your writing, you can, we'll send you some case notes, you send us your letter and receive corrections. And we also have an OET practice test, which is a great resource for you to help with your timing and applying all of those strategies that you've been studying. All of the links are listed in the chat. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us on inquiries@specialistlanguagecourses.com, or go to your specialistlanguagecourses.com and find out more information. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a lovely day.